Hey folks, John Cantera, the Double Broker Bounty Hunter here with Dispatch Kate. Welcome to Stop the Scam. Kate, how the heck have you been?
Today has been so much better than the end of last week.
Yeah, I heard you went through a little bit of hell. It seems like at least one day a week or one day every couple of weeks, every dispatcher out there just catches just a little bit of a rough time. And it's like across all of their carriers.
Yeah,
That was your day that week, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, last Thursday and Friday. I mean, Thursday was really bad. Friday was, I don't know. I always have I try to stay ahead. And when I can't get ahead or when I can't stay ahead, it's really daunting. And last week, I don't know what it was. I don't know if I wouldn't have thought that we would see any kind of effects from the ports being closed for just a few days. So I don't know if it was that. I don't know if it was just that things were slim. I even talked to a few brokers that were like, yeah, we're, that toward the end of the week, we haven't really been running anything. It's been slim pickings. So I don't know what the deal was, but it was the end of last week was so bad. So bad. And I guess I should have seen it coming because I had a really solid last several weeks.
Well, the streaks never last. I did all right last week, all things considered, but I also only had 2 trucks. Everyone else is stuck in a disaster zone from Helene, and they have since been recruited by local power companies to run freight to support relief efforts. So they've been busy doing that. So that means I wasn't earning off of them. But hey, you know what? It is what it is. But before we go ahead and get with Dale, and we still have one other guest who's supposed to be joining us here shortly, trying to buy her a little bit of time, I do want to go ahead and get into some news real quick. And that way we can get everyone up to speed with some of the latest stuff that's going on. Because let me tell you something, there's trouble back in the Gulf again. For those who don't know, there is yet another hurricane brewing in the Gulf. Hurricane Milton came up yesterday, and in just a matter of a few hours, has become a Category 5 hurricane. So this one is particularly dangerous. This is the latest map from the National Hurricane Center. This was published about an hour ago. We are currently expecting this to remain a major hurricane all the way up to the Florida West Coast. It is expected to hit the Tampa area sometime Wednesday evening. Right now, they are anticipating it to hit as a strong Category 3 or a low Category 4 storm. And normally that is just bad news for the area. But since only a couple of weeks ago, they got tons from Helene, this can be a very, very bad thing. In fact, I believe in the last hour, evacuation orders have just started going out in the Tampa Bay area. So this one could be ugly. Ports in the area are also having their fair share of issues. The U.S. Coast Guard captains of the port for the different districts across the Southeast have started upgrading themselves. PortCon Whiskey, which means tropical storm conditions possible within the next 72 hours. It also means that ports are open and reviewing their emergency plans. The port of Savannah falls under that category right now. PortCon X-Ray, which is the next highest level, is tropical storm conditions within the next 48 hours. Ports are open, but they're beginning their preparations. This includes Brunswick, Georgia, the entire North Florida sector, Jacksonville, Fernandina, and Canaveral, the Miami sector, which includes Miami and Port Everglades, the Key sector, as well as the St. Petersburg sector, all of which are expecting this stuff to hit soon. And we do expect this to upgrade yet again in the next few hours to port condition Yankee, which means tropical storm conditions possible within 24 hours. The ports will then be closed to all inbound traffic, and vessel plans for the emergency will be finalized. Any vessels that elect to remain in port need to do so, and those who don't want to stay need to head out to Anchorage. And then 12 hours prior, you hit Port Con Zulu, where ports are closed to all traffic, and vessels that are in port are secured and in lockdown status until the Coast Guard can assess post-storm impacts to the waterways and facilities of the port. So a little bit of education there on the port status and the hurricane. Guys, this is going to be ugly. If you are out there in the Tampa area, it is highly recommended that you evacuate while you still have the chance. You've got probably about 48 hours before it hits. So please, by all means, get out while you can. Now, for the meat of our topic for today, we are talking about Carrier 411's changes from last week. Those of you who have been following our special reports from last week have seen all the fun things that Carrier 411 has been doing to give themselves a facelift. One of the things that has not been reported is that Carrier 411 is getting an entire new interface and layout, which will be launching soon. That is according to CEO and owner Darren Brewer in an exclusive interview that I had with him on Thursday night. The Freight Guard reports, though, are the issue that I have the greatest concern with, as well as other members of the panel. And here is what we're looking at in terms of overhaul and modernization of the Freight Guard program. There were originally 12 categories. 2 of those categories are going away, so only 10 will remain. There are 16 new categories that are being added for a total of 26 categories or offenses that a carrier can be accused of and receive what I call an informal sanction. And yes, I use that term very specifically here, only because, yeah, I know FMCSA would be the one that would shut down somebody's authority and officially sanction them. But it's an informal sanction because if compliance departments say, hey, you got a Freight Guard for anything, we don't use you. Well, boom, you've been sanctioned. End of story. So there's my rationale there. Take it or leave it, guys. Freight Guard reports are permanent after 72-hour response period has ended. That does mean that if you are successful in negotiating a settlement with between the broker and the offending carrier before the 72-hour period expires, that Freight Guard will go away in its entirety as if it never happened. So that is one halfway decent thing that I can report here. Deleted reports, however, after the 72-hour period do remain visible, and the broker identity will be masked. The brokers are going to be required, however, to select one of 6 reasons for the deletion. And I've got the reasons listed here in an upcoming slide. Carrier 411 site is also no longer blocking international IP addresses. So if you want to try to log into their site and possibly respond to a Freight Guard from Pakistan, you can. But responses are requiring carriers to select to accept a geolocation marker, which is going to give Carrier 411 a positive identification of the address for the IP address, the physical street address for the IP address that is providing that response. So I can't imagine a response coming from Pakistan is going to get any favorable play when that is visible on the platform. These are the original 12 accusations. The red ones are the ones that have been deleted. Fraudulent activity has been removed, as well as unethical or deceptive business practices. Do call that a victory, but those were also catch-alls, which then lead into the 16 new accusations. Now, we did report earlier last week that filed lawsuits and legal threats were going away. Legal threats ended up staying. The accusation of filing a lawsuit has dropped off. However, they did replace that with demanding additional payment. So this is categorized by somebody making unreasonable demands for payment for accessorials or any other kind of charge. I think this falls in line with the what do we call that? The modification of the agreement in transit.
Yeah, in transit modification, rate modification, something.
Yeah. So I think that falls along the same lines. But these are the new 16 categories. You guys can refer to my videos from last week to get the in-depth scoop as to what each of these mean. But these are the new things that carriers can be accused of and, frankly, lose a lot of business for. If a broker does delete a freight guard after the 72-hour period, again, the broker's identity is going to be removed, but they will add why it was deleted. And these are the 6 categories here. The issues were resolved amicably. That, of course, is the best of all worlds. And assuming a broker reads it, that might actually take the sting out of a permanent freight guard. But we all believe, at least I think everyone on this panel believes, that a freight guard, if it's deleted, should just be completely gone as if it never happened. Unspecified reasons is the second one. Internal review is the third. Mistaken identity. That's when a broker just picks the wrong MC number to throw the freight guard against. Legal action or dispute resolution. And finally, business considerations. I'm guessing that to be something like the customer says, come on, don't throw the freight guard on the guy. Cut him a break. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. But those are the new categories. Now, this is a big one, and I'm glad we've got such a strong audience right now because I want everyone to see and understand this. Mr. Brewer has asked me to compile a list of feedback from carriers and brokers alike who have recommendations and suggestions for changing their process. So Carrier 411 is open to receiving feedback. I have created an email address at the bottom of your screen there, carrier411.feedback@gmail.com. We'll be taking your suggestions for the next 7 days. Please send us your email, but when you do, follow these rules. Number 1, identify the problem. Okay. Secondly, why is it a problem? A well thought out answer here is most preferable. Lastly, please recommend a solution. It is never a good idea to sit there and say, this sucks, without saying why it sucks and what we can do to make it suck less. So to summarize all that, please, guys, this is not supposed to be for use for getting rid of an existing freight guard report. So please don't ask. Also, be professional about it. I know this is a very charged topic, so terroristic threats will not be taken lightly in any way, shape, or form. Any terroristic threats will be reported to law enforcement. Okay, so please be respectful, be appropriate, be professional, and then we will be happy to present your feedback to Carrier 411, and hopefully we can make some changes for the better for the industry. With that being said, let me go ahead and get that out of here. I do want to go ahead and introduce our guest. He has been with us quite a bit, Dale Prax of Freight Validate. Dale, it's always great to have you, sir. Welcome to the show.
Man, it's always great to be here. You know, I love what you guys are doing. I love anybody that's putting content out there that is not just a bunch of crap, that, you know, really talks about the issues, really talks about, you know, using your experience to make the industry better. I just have a lot of respect for guys like you and, you know, Kate. You know, I think I've said this a million times, even on your show. It's like, let's stop fighting each other and start fighting the problem in a unified front. And I really respect that you guys are really kind of that group that's really trying to help do that.
It's a challenge, to say the least. We've seen so much angst develop within this industry, and a massive wedge being driven between carriers and brokers, when frankly we need to be working together to make this industry what it should be and what it has been in the past. Yeah. What drives me nuts about folks like Carrier 411, Carrier Assure, and all these others is they continue to drive an even larger wedge between all parties and try to make things a bit more difficult. I will briefly say we are expecting our other guest to be dropping in sometime in the very near future. Miss Danielle Spinelli of MyCarrierPortal is expected to be joining us shortly. I think she is getting off of a plane and getting her luggage. So as soon as she gets squared away, she's going to be checking in with us, and we'll bring her up to the stage right away as soon as she checks in. So I do want to make sure that everyone knows that she's coming. So Dale, initial thoughts about this, about what's going on with Carrier 411. What do you think?
I think one of the things you brought up briefly was about that the wedge, right? And I've been a broker for 32 years, so I've seen it. I've seen how, it seems that brokers and carriers have always been at each other. But even more in the last 3 or 4 years, it wasn't like this in the 1990s. We used to go out and have beer together and do all kinds of things, but it's changed a lot. And coincidentally, so has the emergence of carrier vetting programs during that same time frame. I don't know if that's a coincidence. I have not seen one company called Broker 411. I've not seen one company called, anything, broker anything. But take it from me, man, there are bad brokers out there too. So that being said, I don't think it's right to say, okay, let's just turn this thing around and open up a Broker 411 and start bashing the hell out of brokers, because that's not going to do anybody any good. It's just going to make the problem much worse. So that's why I'm pretty proud of our platform, that we, from the very day we started it, said we're going to look at Canadian carriers, we're going to look at U.S. carriers, Mexican carriers, freight forwarders, freight brokers, motor carriers. Everybody's, anybody that's regulated by the FMCSA is open game for us to check and make sure they're doing the right thing to protect the rest of the group. So I think that's important. But I think that you'll see that wedge really start coming in when we start going after them, and maybe in the wrong way. We are using subjective data to penalize people. And it's no different than when you're trying to fight crime. If you're a cop, let's not profile people, but we've started profiling people based on how many inspections they have, how long they've been in business, and all these different data, which are good review points, but not points to put somebody out of business. If somebody has the same phone number, let's say, or same address as 5 other people, is that an offense under 49 CFR 390.5T? No, it's not. It doesn't become an offense until they're affiliated with each other and didn't disclose that or denied that to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. So nobody should be not given freight because they share an address with 5 other companies, unless they're violating a law in that way. But those people have been put out of business. They've been given black marks. I mean, how would Landstar feel about that? They own 5 or 6 companies, all based in Jacksonville, same building, right? So is that fair to them? And we just have made a point to, let's take care of the drivers. Let's weed out the bad guys. Don't lose a good guy because we became so overzealous in fighting bad guys. Don't make this bar so ridiculous that we're going to take somebody out of business because they didn't have 2 inspections in a year. Well, a guy drives from Butte, Montana to Minneapolis every night. Chances are he's not going to get an inspection across North Dakota at 2 o'clock in the morning. So, and then we have to put it back to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Are they doing new entrant audits? Are they doing the things to prove who these people say they are? The biggest problem that I think that we see right now, and it should have gone back to August 23rd of 2013 when the Federal Register came out about spending $360 million over the next 10 years to make vetting happen, to make it happen right. We spent $36 million a year to come to a point where, okay, that's over. Let's now do modernization of the URS and call it the FRS. We wasted all that money. So it's really sad that we've come to a point where FMCSA approved does not mean by any stretch of the imagination FMCSA compliant. And so that's what we're doing. We're looking at the information that comes from FMCSA, scouring the application, making sure it's correct, making sure that it's in compliance with the law, and then we'll let them be validated in Freight Validate. If it's not, we don't let them. And I've been called by many people now as the unofficial quality assurance department of the FMCSA. And I'm pretty proud of that moniker, really, to be honest with you, because it's working. So we've got to do a better job in working together and using objective data to put somebody out if a person's violating, MAC 21, Public Law 112-141, if they're violating that law, they should be out of business. If they're causing safety on our nation's highway, they should be out of business. Those are the things we have to work at, not how many inspections you had, because that's after you check this stuff. And I'm taking over your whole show, but I'm going to continue to do it.
Go ahead.
And that's why
Preach.
I think that our integration with MyCarrierPortal is so important. And the analogy I like to use with that is when you go to the airport, the first thing you show them before you get through the gate is your license and your boarding pass. Why is that? Because they use IDEMIA for facial recognition verification to prove that you are who you say you are and that you're not on a no-fly list, you're not a criminal, all those kind of things. That's what I do. I know who you are with 100% certainty. I know that you're not on a no-fly list, let's call it, because you're not in violation of the law. Now you can get through, but you still have to go through and check your baggage. That's the MyCarrierPortal part. All of their customers report on other carriers. They share information. They say, hey, this guy did a double broker thing against me. Then they have risk assessments that are set up by the company who subscribes to MyCarrierPortal to say, hey, I think this is a big enough flag that I'm just not going to use the guy. Or I'll let that go because I know this guy so well. Let the company make their own business decision. However, that being said, if they come to us and they're in violation of a law, like if they're working out of a post office box, they're working out of a UPS store, they own 15 MC numbers, and their application is signed by 5 people that say, I have no affiliation with anybody else. They don't even get to go through to get their bag on the belt.
Yeah, I love that analogy. That analogy is absolutely perfect, especially since Danielle is coming off of a plane right now. But that's neither here nor there. One of the things that I will say in defense of Carrier 411 and some of the other groups out there, I think they went into this with the right intention.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
I think they tried to fill a gap that existed within the industry to try to help brokers, and it has snowballed into what we're seeing today. I think a lot of the things that Carrier 411 actually does is okay. I actually don't mind the freight card program. Is a accusation against an innocent carrier. There is absolutely no chance for a carrier to defend themselves. And these latest changes appear to me to be designed to stop some of the services like even I used to provide. I used to sit there and help carriers get freight cards removed. But when I did it, I would first investigate the carrier that's trying to hire me, try to determine, okay, what are you accused of? And are you actually guilty of what you're accused of? And if it is such an egregious thing, I am not representing you, no matter how much money you want to try to throw my way. And if I am willing to represent you and I see the evidence that you are, in fact, 100% innocent, I'm not sitting there charging $2,000, $5,000 a pop to do it. I'm charging $500, and only if I'm successful. Right. So I don't think that Darren's entire shtick has been necessarily aimed directly at me. I may have been collateral damage, but there are some organizations out there that appear to be preying on carriers and allowing for those who are really desperate, sometimes the scammers themselves, giving them an option to try to help them. Now, I've heard stories about some of the other things that are out there. Like I know of rings out in Eastern Europe that do denial of service attacks whenever one of their affiliated carriers gets a freight card, and they blow a broker up so badly that a broker can't even pick up the phone and call their customer because they're getting bombarded with these demands to remove these freight cards. I'm talking 24 hours a day, every second of every day for a solid week until they give up and say, I'm tired of this shit. I want to sleep. And they pull it down just so they can go to bed at night. Yeah. I know that those things exist. And I think that that's one of the things he's fighting against. And okay, I can buy that. But again, where is the adjudication process so that innocent people can defend themselves? That is my problem with this whole thing.
Yeah. I think it's also important to remember that Carrier 411 was started in 2004, I think. So before any of this, not saying it was never an issue, but it certainly was not as much of an issue as it became in the last like 4 or 5 years. So there, whatever kinds of things that he was trying to do in 2004 were probably very well thought out and for the protection of the brokers as a whole, or whatever the case may be. But as time went on, so many extra things have happened that it's hard to find a way to integrate like some kind of safety measures for everyone, I guess. So I'm not saying that everything is right. I'm just saying maybe that's where a lot of those flaws come in, because it wasn't intended to be used on such a large fraudulent scale like what we see today.
In 20 years, the landscape has changed tremendously. I lived through it. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. So the landscape has changed. In 2004, you didn't have, nearshoring and farshoring in Ukraine, Colombia, Philippines, India. You didn't have that. You didn't have VPN issues. You didn't have IP hiding behind IPs. You didn't have really smartphones as they are. So all of those things. And here's the biggest thing that they didn't have in 2004, COVID. COVID was the start of a lot of fraud. And here's just my feeling on it. And I may be wrong. I've been known to be wrong before. Ask my wife. But I think that when COVID started in 2020, we as a country told people not to go to work, right? We gave them unemployment. Then we added $600 a week to their unemployment. So they were staying home watching Scooby-Doo and playing video games and not caring about going to work. During that same time, freight went crazy. It was some of our busiest times during March 2020 to 2022. Freight went crazy. Where are you going to hire people from? So we went to Ukraine, we went to the Philippines, we went to Colombia. We hired all these folks. So they did a good job. And I'll tell you, I'll be the first to admit, there's some kids in Ukraine that are better broker than I am. They are hardworking kids. They do a good job. Everything's okay. They're good brokers. They were doing it legally because they were working for somebody that maybe hired them with an employer of record doing all the legal stuff, right? But these are mostly third world countries that we're hiring, where they're making about $500 or $600 a week. You're paying the EOR a little bit more money, but you're still getting them cheaper than anybody you get in the United States during that time. And what a good thing, because we had people taking care of the freight we had to have happen. Then people started coming back to work, right? So we in the brokerage industry, we do this, there's good money in it. We do it to buy boats and cars and do all this kind of stuff. They did it because they were trying to feed their family because they're not in a rich neighborhood, right? So when people started coming back to work, these folks started losing their jobs. And so now they said, how am I going to support myself? I'm a good broker. Well, I got a good idea. I'll get somebody in the United States to get me a $300 gift card from Walmart that's got a number on the back and a number on the front and a date that it expires. I'll hire somebody like A5BOC3, whichever comes up first on the internet for my BOC3. I'll get somebody to give me a surety bond. Maybe I have a relative somewhere that's going to give me, if I want to get a truck, I'll get insurance through him because I'm going to double broker the freight. There's never going to be a claim. He has no chance of having a loss on claim for the truck damage or for the cargo, because the truck I got, the VIN number came off of eBay. There's Danielle. The truck number came off, the VIN number came off of eBay, or it's in a junkyard. So these guys are now in business. When they apply for their application with that $300 gift card, the FMCSA looks at it and says, are you a U.S. citizen? Yes, I am. Is your name really Charlie Brown? Sure it is. Are you affiliated with any other companies? Yep, no problem. And they let them in. And how many of those people came in and are causing destruction right now?
Insane numbers of them. Insane numbers. One of the other things that you pointed out early on in the show, and then we'll go ahead and do the introduction quick for Danielle, is you pointed out that there's no such thing as a broker 411. When we had Darren Brewer on our show, episode 7, back in, what was that? Was that February?
It had to be either February or March. Yeah.
I remember it was episode 7. When we had him on, he was saying that he does intend to release a similar platform. I think he's calling it Carrier 511, so that carriers can subscribe and carriers can file freight cards or whatever the equivalent is against brokers. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. All that does is continue to drive an even bigger wedge between the two industries. And all it does at the end of the day is line Carrier 411's pocket. Just by gathering additional subscriptions. Even if he gets, maybe 10 subscriptions, that probably is going to pay for whatever web development he did just to get it put together. Because I'm sure he's piggybacking off of his current template. But that's neither here nor there. I think those kinds of reactions by carriers only exacerbate this issue altogether. I have not made it any secret. Professionalism is the way to act in any industry, but especially this. When you get a carrier sitting on the dock and he gets really angry at the guy sitting on the dock and all hell breaks loose and someone starts throwing around racial epithets and all this other stuff, freight guards start flying around too. Guys, be professional. Just be professional and half these problems go away like that. The other half is if FMCSA did their job, but that's neither here nor there. Let's go ahead and introduce.
Before you bring Danielle on, really quick, I just want to mention this because you just talked about it. When you give somebody the, I just lost my. What were we just talking about? Just remind me because I'm getting old.
My Carrier 411 doing a Carrier 511.
Yeah, but after that, when we talked about. I don't know. Bring Danielle on. I'll think of it. I've been, I own a freight brokerage, so I've been one of my guys on vacation. So I'm going on hour number 36. I'm working the day shift in Freight Validate.
Thank you.
My brokerage, and then I have the night shift from 11 o'clock to 7 in the morning. So I'm going on my 37th hour. So bear with me.
Okay, well, we'll forgive you for that. In the meantime, Danielle, welcome to the show. This is Danielle Spinelli of MyCarrierPortal. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope your flight was comfortable.
Yes, I'm actually still on the shuttle. I'm blocking off right now, so kind of a crazy day, but I'm here.
Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. I don't know if you've been able to follow along what we've been talking about. We're talking about the updates to Carrier 411's process. I don't know if you've had the chance to look at my other shows on this to talk about some of the changes that are being made. What do you know about it? What are your opinions on it? But before we really get into that, we never really did a proper introduction of you. We don't even know who you are. Hey, there's a lot of pictures. Wonderful.
Someone who looks like their picture. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
It's wonderful. All right, so tell us a little bit about Danielle. Who are you? What do you do? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I've been with MyCarrierPortal for about a year. I'm in sales. And before that, I was a freight broker for 8 years. I'm mainly in carrier sales. And yeah, just loving the logistics industry. And here I am.
Yeah. Once you're in this industry, you never can get out. It's like the mafia.
I know.
But
Totally.
It's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. I'm happy here. Okay. So, Carrier 411. Have you when you were a broker before, did you use Carrier 411?
Oh yeah, definitely. That was so we use MyCarrierPortal and then also pulling up for freight guards and for 411 because that was prior to, MyCarrierPortal having it. So yeah, definitely we used it all the time. So the whole new thing where they're making the reports not being taken off. I mean, honestly, whenever you read those reports, they're already 1 out of 10 are like, does this? Who cares really? Like, I need a truck and let's move on. So I think already a lot of people don't believe all those reports and don't read all those reports. So to make it where you can't even delete some after something's been fixed, like let's say like a unresolved claim, hey, you did this to kind of push the guy, then he finally paid, take down the report. Still having that up there, I don't think is fair to the carrier at all. And I think a lot of time brokers are just, freight guard happy, unfortunately.
So what would you say to a broker that's reevaluating how they utilize freight guards now? How would you best coach them in trying to deal with the program compared to what you typically see in the industry today?
Yeah, for me, whenever our company was using it, it would be basically as like a last solution. Like if it's where, this guy's completely ghosted you, you cannot reach anybody, like you're pretty much like 99% sure this freight's been stolen, or 100% sure it's been stolen, you can't track anything. I mean, really, that's the only time you should be submitting that. Or if there's like an unresolved claim and, they're not paying and it's been a year that went by or something like that, it needs to be a last resort.
Okay. Now, one of the things that I have done in my past, and still trying to decide whether or not I want to keep doing it, is try to help carriers
Yeah.
resolve these freight guard issues. You've seen all the different groups that are out there that do these kinds of things. I think the latest one is Carrier Defender. I think there's a couple other different groups like that out there. One of the things that I've always done, and I never really talk about my approach to doing this, but what I usually do is I try to come in as a mediator. I try to respect the fact that a broker's trying to do their job and they've gone through something usually very damaging or specific in order to get them to throw the freight guard out there in the first place. Normally,
Right.
I have to assume that it's not a knee-jerk reaction by a broker. A lot of times it is. And I have to assume that the carrier may have some form of culpability as to what's going on, and it's usually a misunderstanding either by the carrier or by the broker of what's actually going on. And then I try to mediate.
Usually a lot of
Um, I,
emotions.
Tons of emotions, which is
Yeah.
why carriers hire me, because then I don't bring the emotional baggage into it. And I say, okay, here are the facts. This is what they tell me. Mr. Broker, why don't you tell me what happened? I only have one side of the story. Help me put together the pieces of this puzzle. Because as we all know, there are three sides to every story. There's the carrier side, there's the broker side, and then there's reality.
Right.
And it's always somewhere in the middle there. So trying to figure out what that middle point is, and then to negotiate a settlement based on that middle point has been my key to success. What some of my competitors have been doing is the constant harassment, the immediate legal threats, and all this stuff. I don't know about you, but the last time I heard of an attorney getting involved in something, it was an ugly demand letter. And it was always, we are going to sue you if you don't do this, that, and the other. Guys,
and as a broker, it's like, bring it on. If it was bad enough, it's like, bring it on. Yeah.
And that's the response. Whereas you'd respond entirely differently if you say, hey, look, this is the story I heard. What did you hear?
Right.
And is there a way to reach common ground here? Yeah, I don't get them all removed. And in fact, my rates have gone down. It's probably around the 60% mark now. When I started doing it, it was like 80%. But my success rates dropped. But still, what drives me nuts about this whole thing is that there's no way to defend a carrier anymore.
Right. Which is sad.
Not that I'm out of business. I don't mind being out of business from this. I really don't. Okay. In fact, I want everyone to be driven out of business and things be done the right way the first time.
Yeah.
But in reality, we still have to live with this. How do we live with this? How do we live with this future that we're in?
Well, I think brokers need to be thinking the same mindset, like especially if there's something, a recourse, even like Carrier Sure, how they have ratings on brokers now. I mean, there are things that carriers can do, and even like going on Google and making a bad review on the broker. I mean, those carriers look at those things. So I think it's, whenever you're going to submit a freight guard, it really needs to be a last resort. And I mean, you need to have all your ducks in a row, have all your facts. And then really make it where, hey, I talked to this carrier, I did X, Y, Z, and in the notes to the, in the freight guard needs to be super specific, tons of information, tons of facts. It does not need to just be like, oh, I think, he canceled his load because, he got sick or something like that. Like, I had an issue at my brokerage, we had an asset side, and somebody submitted, they marked it as double brokering, canceling load, and something else. And in the notes, it just said that the carrier canceled load because he got sick. Well, then that's not double brokering. So like, we contacted Care 411, hey, remove the double brokering part. You can clearly see there that it does not say anything about double brokering. It was canceling the load. So it's like, it's things like that. Like a broker obviously got mad at us. Similar thing. It needs to be handled, respectfully both ways.
And for those who have not had the pleasure of trying to call Carrier 411 about this, what was their response to you on that?
My manager is the one who actually handled it, but from my understanding, it did not get changed. I think we ended up having the broker take it down. That was the only way to get it done. But they would not change it at all, or even really listen to us. And I know on our carrier profile, it had like red marks everywhere, like all those things that they mark on whenever a carrier called in blocked. It's like blocked or something like that they put. That was all over our asset side. Real fun.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Go ahead.
I think
Go
one of the issues, though, is that people they read the headline, don't read the story. They say, "Oh, he's got a freight guard," and just that's it. I mean, how many freight guards you have? Blah blah blah. There needs to be one thing. There needs to be is what is the level of the freight guard? Is it freight guard level 1, almost like a hurricane? Is it a freight guard level 5, category 5? Why in the world should someone have? I have a freight guard against me, but it's for like I was late for the pickup. It's well because my pre-trip didn't go so well. I had to get a tire fixed before I could go in there. You don't know those, but the same for that same freight guard level of like it's a freight guard. The guy could have double brokered your load and done all kinds of things wrong. You both have a freight guard. So a broker looks at it and says, "Oh, you got a freight guard." No, I think there should be levels of freight guardness, if there's such a word, freight guardness. I also think that there should be a mediation process. I think that a lot of platforms make a lot of money every month. So you could hire a good transportation attorney, a good insurance guy, a broker, a carrier, and one other person. So you have 5 people that have to make a vote. And they call the balls and strikes. They talk to both parties. They mediate it. Everybody that signs up for freight, carrier 411 has the same. You know that if this goes south, you're going to go through mediation, and that mediator will decide if it stays on, it goes off, or whatever. I think that no matter what, nobody should defend somebody that was proven that they did something that would cause a safety concern on our nation's highway. If you send in a solo for a team run and you get freight guarded for it, you're living with that. You're staying with that. Because if it comes off, you're going to do it again, and somebody's going to get killed. So I think we have to look at the things that we take off of there also. I mean, I'll never bash one of the other companies, 411, Highways, all those guys. They all started this to do a good job. I will, however, disagree with some of their methods on how they do it. I disagree with having a freight guard. I disagree with a lot of things that are reactive rather than proactive. That's what I like about our relationship with MyCarrierPortal. We are trying to be as proactive to get them to stop doing it in the first place before they have to get a freight guard. Let's keep them out of the books in the first place.
Right. And our incident reports, which is basically our version of a freight guard, the real difference with that is that a carrier can dispute it. And then, I mean, both sides have to show in documentation, like, really the carrier is going to have to prove a lot because, a lot of times the bad guys are the ones who make the most noise about wanting to get something removed. But, if you're able to provide documentation, we talk to the customer, hey, this is what we have proof wise. We're going to be taking this down based off that. I mean, we have the conversation with the customer, and I think that's the approach Carrier 411 should have. Really, any platform that has this type of power in a report should have is making sure that both sides are heard.
That brings up a very good point, and I think Dale, this dovetails with the essay that you put out last week in terms of liabilities that exist out of all this. These brokers. My gosh, it fell right out of my head. Dale, you're giving me the old man syndrome. You're giving me. You go ahead and fire off first, then.
Yeah. So. Like we all mentioned before, and Danielle said too, that a lot of these are emotional, right? So would we all agree that by making all these changes that have happened in the last, 96 hours on Carrier 411, we're an emotional response to some people that are really fighting, some Overdrive magazine articles, some people saying we're going to do all these things to kind of fight 411. Was that an emotional response to it? Yes. If we had vetting companies, 411, the owner of 411 would have gotten a freight guard himself because he made an emotional thing to make something happen to change it. And we talk about the liability issue, right? If I were the owner of 411, I would be concerned that have I crossed the line from Article 230 into tortious interference with business? Because now it's not just a platform that we're listening to third parties put their information in there like Facebook or X or one of those and just seeing it out there. But if we are given consistent, verifiable, reliable, proven data that the information was false and we don't take it off, that takes away your Article 230 protection. Because you're now not just watching something that's happening on your platform, you become part of it. You've been notified that it was completely false and you're letting somebody perhaps go out of business. My opinion, again, I'm not an attorney, But to me, that is torturous interference with business relationships. And that has to be really looked at really carefully. And again, not an attorney. I'm sure they got a ton of attorneys, but I think I like to live by a little bit of common sense too.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that really drove me nuts about this whole thing. Now, I had the opportunity back on Thursday evening to speak to Darren directly, and we did touch on the topic of interference. And he says that his attorneys disagree and that he's well in his rights and maintains his 230 protections as a result. I tend to agree with you. Again, I'm not an attorney either. I tend to agree with you that a line appears to be crossed here. And I know opinions are like buttholes. Everyone's got one and they all stink. But at the end of the day, what then becomes of the carrier who's reported? What then becomes of the carrier that loses business because they had a false report that winds up being permanent? And most of these brokerages are now sitting there saying, oh, if you have a freight guard whatsoever, we're not going to give you a load. If it's going to be visible on the platform, they most likely will not get a load. The final question then becomes, Mr. Broker, are you going to change your compliance policy to force yourselves to read the freight guards and determine whether or not it actually poses a viable and liability threat to your cargo? And I think that conversation desperately needs to be had at the brokerage level.
Yeah. And, going really quickly back to my lawyer said that they agree with it. Every court case I've ever seen, and I was a legal officer in the Marine Corps, so I wasn't an attorney, but I was around them a lot. But you'll notice that in every court case, even on TV, where there's a plaintiff, there's a defendant, attorney, right? They disagree. That doesn't, just because my lawyer says something doesn't mean it's right. The old saying is, where there's a will, there's a lawyer to contest it. Same thing here. So I don't buy that part. I think we have to look at other attorneys and maybe get some real debate and dialogue into that to protect the industry. So I don't have a whole lot to say. And the other thing is they call it practicing law. It's not perfecting law.
Very true. We did invite a couple of attorneys onto today's show to actually have this discussion. Unfortunately, none of them have agreed to join us. I imagine because this can be such a hotly contested issue, and they don't want to be caught on one side or the other if they don't have to be. And I can respect that.
Or they maybe defend somebody later or be plaintiff bar that the defendant's attorney would look back at this video and say, well, you said this then. So I think as an attorney, that's probably a smart move. Probably so. But it would have been good to get some kind of clarity as to what the potential legal ramifications actually are, both for Carrier 411 and potential remedies for carriers who have legitimate gripes at being innocent in these accusations. Yeah, I would much rather let none of us are attorneys. I'd much rather let 5 bad guys go free than persecute 1 good guy. And that's just my philosophy on how things should really work. I don't think that, again, will those 5 guys maybe hurt somebody? Yeah, but I'm not going to put some guy who's worked his butt off for 20 years and put him out of business and hurt his family. I'm just not going to, our platform will not allow that to happen. The other part about that is it's not just the 1 guy who's being put out of business. It's the 50 other employees, drivers, dispatchers, accountants, and all that are also suffering from the actions of 1 individual usually. Right. So right. That's the other thing that really chaps my tail on all this. Yeah. Danielle, any thoughts?
I mean, basically, I'm on the exact same page as you guys. It is interesting how, like, that a lot of they're saying that they're standing behind. I mean, really, this is a whole different type of industry. This is literally livelihoods. It's a lot different than Facebook, where somebody's just putting a review on there. This is like a whole different ball game. So it would be interesting to see if it does go up in higher levels, to see if could be industry specific. To me, that's what I kind of think will happen with this, but who knows?
Yeah, one of the things that I really like about MyCarrierPortal, and I've been a customer of MyCarrierPortal since Jay Pelkey was my sales rep, so I've been around for a little bit. But I really like having risk assessments in there that put a grade on the things that are going wrong, like on a safety score, or a grade on what is the severity of what this guy allegedly did, or what another customer maybe reported. Now you decide. We have got to remember that these business people need to make business decisions. None of us should make a business decision for any one of our customers. Now, that being said, we can still say this guy's in violation of the law. We recommend you don't use him because of that, because when he kills a family of 5 and you know that he's in violation of 49 CFR or he's in violation of MAP 21 and you gave him the load anyway, now that's on you. You can make that decision. I think it was Danielle that mentioned the other day, it's called free will. We're going to tell you what to do, but you have the free will to make that decision. In every single decision, there's a fork in the road. You can choose which way you want to go. I'm just telling you what may be down that road. You make the decision.
And as far as vetting goes, I mean, especially with our service, like you said, the risk assessment, it's not a yes or no answer. It is like, hey, these are the things to look out for. Hey, ask these questions. Talk to the carrier more. We have a VIN verification. Verify that this truck actually belongs to this carrier. Make sure the driver's standing there. So it's a lot more than just like, oh, this was marked on them, or oh, they have no inspections, or things like that. Like, it's actually, let's have a conversation, and that's part of our training. So that's something that I think the whole industry needs to adopt to, especially with including freight guards. Let's have the conversation. Let's do the extra vetting, making sure that we don't have issues, ahead of time.
Yeah.
And with like that VIN verification, for instance, like I've been, pushing that so hard too, because it's not just on double brokering or theft. It's, let's say you do have a claim and it's an owner operator. Well, hey, I didn't know it was an owner operator. I don't have a lease agreement. So whenever I go file a claim, the insurance company's denying me because I don't have a contract with that owner operator. Okay, well, that's something you should have done your due diligence on, having that VIN verification, knowing that ahead of time. Then that would avoid the whole process of having an unresolved claim freight guard, it's spiraling from there. So having that information up front, I think, is just crucial in order to avoid, situations from happening.
Yeah,
there's so many different things that weave through that, and I'm glad you brought that up, Danielle. It reflects on a case that I've been working on over the last month, and this particular case involves an active claim between a broker and a carrier where a load was stolen. The trailer was literally stolen, so the carrier lacked an interchange agreement, yet picked up a trailer being hauled as cargo through TQL. So now backtracking, why did RMIS is the platform that TQL uses? Yep. Why did RMIS not pick up that this guy didn't have an interchange agreement or interchange coverage? And 2, why in God's name did TQL allow this guy to have a trailer? And now this guy, this carrier, this one truck carrier is now stuck with a $99,000 claim because brokers aren't doing their jobs. Okay. Right. So it's not just the carriers that have problems. Are carriers trying to skirt the rules? Yes, they are.
100%.
Okay. Yeah. And no one is denying that. But brokers aren't exactly playing with a full deck either. Right. Okay. So, I mean, guys, we have got to just put this back together. I'm sorry, Dale, you were trying to make a point, please.
No, I was just going to say that, Danielle mentioned that it's not yes or no. And in that world, it's not. In MyCarrierPortal, it's not. It's giving them the tools to make a good decision. In my world, before they get to them, and I like to use the analogy, when you go to the airport, the first 2 things you're asked for at the airport is your license and your boarding pass. Why do they do it? To put your face with your ID through IDemia, to verify that you are who you say you are, and to see if you're on any no-fly zone or you're breaking law. That's what I do. I know who you are with 100% certainty. I know that you're standing in front of me, and I know that you haven't violated the laws that we look at. Now, once you get past there, that doesn't mean you get to get on the plane. Now you have to go through the baggage claim and put your bag on. That's MyCarrierPortal. They're going to check all those things to see if there's been an issue before with you putting a gun in the bag, right? So then you can get on the plane. And so I want to just taking that plane analogy back to what I talked about earlier with the public record that was dated August 23rd, 2013. On page 29 of that record, it talked about spending $360 million over the next 10 years to do carrier vetting. It says in there, on page 29, it says that the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has the authority to vet all motor carriers, freight forwarders, and brokers before they issue their operating authority. Everybody says, oh, that's really cool. Good job. We're going to do it over the next 10 years. However, being a legal officer back in the Marine Corps, I remembered to look at the footnotes. Footnote 68 on that page says, while the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has the authority to vet all motor carriers It is currently only vetting household goods carriers and passenger carriers. What does that mean to our industry? That means that if I use my same airport analogy, that when all that crowd of people goes to the Nashville airport, they can say, okay, 1.5% of you, in other words, the passenger carriers and household goods carriers make up 1.5% of the total for hire carriers. That means that if you're in the middle row of first class, you have to go through security. The rest of you, get on your plane.
It's crazy. And I think we just lost Danielle. I'm sure we'll get her back in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But you make an excellent point. The amount of screening is just as random as, well, frankly, the real screening at the airport and how many people they actually pull out and check post 9/11. You know, I mean, it has gotten kind of crazy. And they're not using common sense to try to identify specific groups that they need to screen. It's just, to me, it's bedlam.
I want to make another point too about, we're talking about Carrier 411. One thing that I would do as a broker when I'm using Carrier 411 or any vetting platform, you can't just depend on the freight guard or the report that somebody put out there. Even on MyCarrierPortal, there are way more things to look at than did the guy get a report against him, or how many stars does he have, or has he been blocked. Carrier 411 was the pioneer in this stuff, right? They set up the part about checking all these other things in there, like how long has the guy been in business, or how many trucks do they own, all those kind of things, just like all of us have, right? But no one's looking at that data anymore. It seems it doesn't matter unless somebody told on them. Then that's what we're going to look for. So you can have no freight guards, but be a piece of shit over on the other side, and they're going to use you. I mean, what sense does that make? Again, it goes back to subjective data. Anytime you use subjective data to qualify or disqualify somebody, subjective data can be manipulated to make a good guy look bad or a bad guy look good. I like using analogies. When you go to the movie, if I see a movie, I can say that movie sucked. My wife can say that movie is great. We can talk each other into saying that movie is great, right? That's subjective data. If I say that movie won an Oscar, there's no denying it. It won an Oscar. There's no argument. That's objective data. You can't argue objective data.
Which is one of the reasons why we love Freight Validate.
The other thing is you can't use algorithms. You can't use data science exclusively. That's kind of the start. That's where we start, is using data we get from FMCSA. We look for the things that don't match, right? So if it doesn't match, you all remember the story. I think Freight Waves and a bunch of folks had this around the 4th of July. There were all those trucks that were kind of in this whole Ocean's 11 kind of scandal, that they were taking loads, double brokering to somebody else that they were affiliated with, and then they're holding them hostage. Huge deal. Two big logo companies were involved in it. The reports came back that said 22 companies were involved in that whole scandal, right? Because they were using data science to say, okay, do the telephone numbers match? Do the names of the company kind of have the same last name, same first name, all those kind of things? I don't think anybody really looked into those actual applications. I have letters and emails going out every day to the Freedom of Information Act at FMCSA. So I actually look at their MCS 150. I look at their MCSA 5889. I look at the OP1. I look for the glaring discrepancies to see if they violated the law. In my investigation of those guys where everybody's reported there are 22 carriers, I sent those two big box companies the list of 105 carriers that were involved. So how were there so many people involved in that thing? One lady owned 14 MC numbers. She spelled her name a little bit differently on each application she sent to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Whether it's spelled K-R-Y-S-T-A-N or C-H-R-Y, a computer is not going to see that. They're looking for the K. They're looking for the R. What we do is let's look at this person, looks very familiar. We go to like the Secretary of State's office. If you follow the money, you find the crook, right? Even stolen money has to go into a bank account. We find out the same person is affiliated with 14 different companies, even though she spelled the name differently on FMCSA, and they don't check those kind of data records that we check. We found out that she has their address where she registered these companies with the Federal Motor Carrier, with the Secretary of State's office, the state of Illinois, showed that this person's the same person. And then what they do is they funnel all this money into the same bank account, and there's systems that we use to check this out. A broker asks, or the carrier asks for the broker asks the carrier for a void check, right? So I know who to pay. I'm going to ACH it over to you. So they send this voided check. The top left corner says ABC Trucking. Cool. There's a routing number. There's your account number. Then they have 14 other companies that say the top left is BED Trucking or ABC, but they all have the same routing number and VIN number. So they're connected, but it's really easy to hide those kind of things. No computer is going to find that. Computers to start. We use a lot of really human intervention to find out. That's the only way you can do it, in my opinion. But now you tie it all together, and so you have the human interaction with forensic evidence, forensic, investigation. Tie that into who's a good guy or bad guy. The buck stops there. If they get through me, now they go to MyCarrierPortal. So we got them going through the bag too. So I think that's the most rock solid, vetting platform that you can have. Do we look for all the things like an ELD and all? No. It doesn't matter. If they get through me, we're going to find them in another way. So that's just my opinion on how that stuff works. Again, I may be wrong, but it works.
I do think the ELD thing is a good way to track people, and that is something we're working on. But or at least be able to see, kind of like I was saying with that VIN verification, just an added step with that. But no, I agree. What Freight Validate does as far as the front part of it. I mean, unfortunately, this is like Freight Validate is FMCSA's compliance group. So, it's unfortunate that they don't do it, but hopefully we got Dale here.
I think ELD is good too, but not as the disqualifier. Again,
Right.
As what you should review. And I'm working on a platform right now that's going to maybe help with some identity theft, because I think that's really the bad guys are turning now is really to identity theft and stealing DOT numbers, using a DOT number. So I've got a platform that I'm hoping to have released. I'm working with a friend of mine to put this together, that whenever your truck is inspected, within 6 hours, you'll get a notification that says, hey, somebody inspected this VIN number with your DOT number. Was that your truck? And we're going to catch people by that, because people do it all the time. It's really easy to take off the DOT number on a truck and put a placard over it or put a magnet over it. You can't change it on the VIN number. And so that leads me into my next project with Freight Validate is I want to get shippers and brokers to fall into this scenario, right? You can have 1,500 MC numbers. You only have one face. That's why facial recognition works. It works, right? The same with the truck. So you know your carrier. You know the driver. The other thing is every truck is identified with a VIN number that's etched into the vehicle. It's not like you can change the license plate or put another sticker on the door. It's etched in there. I think there should be a policy, and I want to get my customers involved in this thing and maybe get started, is that VIN number needs to be on the bill of lading, the rate confirmation sheet, and checked by all stakeholders in the company. So now, if you're doing that, you're matching everything up together. You can also tie it to the plate. There are free apps out there that if you type in the plate number or take a picture of the plate, it'll tell you what the VIN number of that truck is. If they don't match, we have an issue. So you can tie all those things together. Let's stop tracking freight by what's the DOT number. Hey, is the DOT number on the door? How about let's say this is the VIN number, and then that ties into MyCarrierPortal with the VIN verification, right? So let's get people putting those numbers on. Don't put the DOT number on the bill of lading. Put the VIN number on it. Then when he gets pulled over by the cop for roadside inspection, let me see your bill of lading. I want to match it to your VIN number. If it doesn't match, we have an issue.
I love that suggestion.
Yeah.
We have the technologies. I'm just about ready to release it probably in the next 2 weeks. We're that close. And then we're also going to, so there'll be an immediate notification if somebody gets inspected. Hey, is this your truck? If it is, great. If it's not, we have an issue. Let's get with FMCSA. They're changing some stuff. Let's get it taken care of. And then every month we'll send them a monthly report of these are all the VIN numbers that were inspected under your MCN number last month.
Dale, not to put you on the spot, but when you release that upgrade to your platform, I'd love to bring you on again so you can demonstrate that for the audience.
Yeah, I will bring my friend Tommy Rook is a really good friend of mine. Been in the business for 55 years. He started the Motor Carrier Insurance Foundation. So he helps insurance companies all over the. So we want to put this out there as not only to help mitigate fraud, but if the more fraud we can mitigate, the more insurance policy prices are going to go down, right? That's kind of our goal, to make everything I do is to help the small carrier. The big box guys, they have a budget for fraud. If $100,000 load goes away to a company like a big box company, let's just say, that's just like an inconvenience. If a driver loses $90,000, his family is decimated. It's not inconvenience. His life is over. So we've got to start thinking for those guys, and that's what. Again, I'm going to keep talking about MyCarrierPortal, the first integration that we did, because we have that same culture, the same mindset, and let's take care of the guys that are 90% of the organization, not the 5% that can take care of themselves. They have a compliance team together. I want to give MyCarrierPortal, I think they'll agree, we want to give that guy that's got 3 trucks his own compliance department. We're it. You go drive your truck.
And the small broker too, same thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. We're coming up over an hour now. We try to keep these things at around an hour, so we do need to start wrapping up. Dale, any last thoughts that you want to throw out there? I mean, I think you hit your summary already, but go ahead. Hit that plug.
Okay, so 2 plugs I want to make. One is for the Broker Carrier Summit coming up on October 23rd to 25th. We're going to be there. We're going to be talking about it. This is one of those events that to me is one of the most important of the fall. They have a couple every year, but this is one we're trying to pull that wedge out. We're trying to get that thing out of there so we can bring people together. We've got to do that. So I want to give a plug to those guys because I think Dan Lindsay and his whole group, Dawn and Trey and, Bain, everybody's doing a great job putting that together. I think it's going to be important as we move forward. The second thing was I want to really plug, if you're a MyCarrierPortal customer, we've seen since we started with MyCarrierPortal, I think I mentioned this earlier, we've seen a 693% month over month, August to September, in people that are registering for subscribing to MyCarrierPortal and to our
congratulations.
So that's huge. So people are hearing about it and they're doing it. So and to celebrate that, actually, Danielle and her team over MyCarrierPortal are offering a 14-day free trial of MyCarrierPortal, and they get a discount. So if you went to my platform, you would not get the same price that they're offering. So I'm recommending, if you're not a customer of MyCarrierPortal,
Freight Validate. Yeah.
What's that?
You said for MyCarrierPortal, but for Freight Validate,
right. If you come to you're not going to get the same price. So I recommend if you're not a customer of MyCarrierPortal, go get to be a customer of MyCarrierPortal because it's good. I've been using it forever. It's great, and then you can get the integration at a reduced price too. So you really get a good deal all the way around. That's how we're doing it. Yeah, I think that we do things a little different around here.
Okay, Danielle, you can hand him the marketing check.
I know, I'm like, he said it all, really.
You have any closing thoughts for you? But before you do, I definitely want to bring you back, Danielle. I want to spend more time with you and talk more about what it is you do and your platform. Hey, it's okay. It happens to the best.
It's been a crazy day.
You're preaching to the choir. This is the logistics industry. It's always a crazy day.
I know.
But no, we definitely want to have you back. Definitely going to bring Dale back. And we definitely have a lot more things that we want to talk about with you. But is there something that you want to go ahead and close with?
I mean, honestly, I feel like Dale said it all, but yeah, I think like he was saying MyCarrierPortal does the 30-day trial and then Freight Validate does 14 days. So us paired together, you can really see, I mean, just try it out, see what you see. What I always say is bring the carriers, look up the carriers, information that you've had issues with, see what they pull up as. Even like in the demo, people do that, and it's like every time I've seen something. So it's been, I've been a user for a long time. Then now I work here, and it's just that's why I'm here because I love the product. I think it's great. But yeah, that's my plugin.
Yeah, I'd like to see Danielle come back and talk about some things that maybe are new with MyCarrierPortal too that I'm using as my brokerage. Things like she mentioned the VIN, but they also have geolocation, so we can get around this IP address stuff. So
that's not very accurate.
I think Danielle could take an hour show just talking about the really cool stuff that's coming out over there.
Yeah.
So
and
cool.
Since we just got acquired by Descartes too, so the integration that they're pulling over with the MacroPoint, like what they're talking about doing is so exciting. So I'm waiting to hear all the finals of everything, but that is just like a whole nother, level basically of where you can see. So, Freight Validate takes it here. How do they register? MyCarrierPortal takes it like how have they been operating, and then MacroPoint adding that into it will be more of like, okay, how are they running when they're actually running your load? Because even their stuff, they have a lot of the spoofing and kind of all the things that you see when something's in progress. So no, I'm really excited for what MyCarrierPortal was coming out, and I'd love to talk about it.
Yeah, you want to talk
definitely about to run a demo with that.
You want to talk about a bulletproof vest. That's what those 3 things are going to bring to the industry.
It's gonna be big.
Fantastic. Kate, you got any closing thoughts?
I think Dale offered a whole lot of insight, and him paired with Danielle gave even more insight. One interesting thing is a little off topic, but closing statement: Milton is now a historical storm, as like the second, was it the second strongest storm in the
Yeah,
Gulf? The other one was
in
Rita.
terms
Oh, wow.
of the lowest pressure, it is an absolutely horrible storm at this point. Yes,
Yeah.
Wow.
and then that is brand new news that just came out in the last few minutes.
Yeah, and I feel so bad. I mean, I have a second home down in Florida. I'm not very far from John, actually, over in Panama City Beach. But I used to live. You mentioned in your opening with the news, Fernandina Beach, the port over there. I used to live in Fernandina. I have a lot of friends over there. I have a lot of friends in Florida, and I just, I'm praying for them. It's just devastating. Tampa and St. Pete. Tim Hingham down there. I feel bad for him going through. We just have a lot of friends in this industry that
A lot of
we just
people
have
down there.
thinking about, and it's just it's going to miss. I think it's going to miss the Panhandle, right? Going to be
It is.
closer over toward Tallahassee and everything. But yeah, it's just and let's all just as a kind of a closing thing. Jeff Dickinson, you all know him up at the Bounty Hunter. He's putting together some really cool things to help these victims in not only North Carolina but now going into Florida. So follow him on LinkedIn so you can see how you can help. We just
Jeff Dickinson is the bodacious cowboy. For those who don't know his handle, we're talking about the bodacious cowboy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Epic mustache. Epic mustache.
Yes.
So let's stop fighting each other. Start fighting the problem. This is another thing we can come together and fight.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for your time. I want to go ahead and reiterate to everybody that you can send us feedback for the Carrier 411 changes that you would like to see, either carriers or brokers. Email us at carrier411.feedback@gmail.com. We will have that open for the next 7 days. Be sure to follow our rules when you're trying to submit some of that feedback, guys, okay? Otherwise, it won't make its way back towards Carrier 411. And we would love to be able to report any changes that Carrier 411 does as a result of the feedback that you guys are going to be sending us. So please do not skimp on any of those emails. Make sure you like and subscribe to all of our social media platforms here for Stop the Scam and also for the Lounge Media Group, so you can be kept informed of any changes and issues that come up across the industry. Stop the Scam is live every Monday, 5 p.m. Central on all the Lounge Media Group social media outlets. Whenever you have any issues dealing with fraud, you can always get a hold of myself, the Double Broker Bounty Hunter, at jcantera@vigilanttransport.com, or you can contact my co-host and partner in crime, Kate Price, at kprice@rockdovefs.com. And for those people that are out in the Florida Peninsula, please be careful. If you are under evacuation orders, please get out of the way of this one. I be living in Florida. Usually I'm laughing at a category 1 or 2. But once it gets to be a category 3, it's a whole new ballgame because not much can withstand it after that point. If you're under evacuation orders, please get out. Stay safe out there. And no matter what you do, please don't let scammers take you for a ride. We'll see y'all next week. Thank you very much to our guests, and we will be back in touch. Take care, y'all.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.